Hello there. Hope you're doing super well. Excited to have a lot to share with you that I hope will be really helpful to anyone tuning in. So, really, without further ado, let's get started here. I think, in fact, that I wanted to start with this email that I got one day ago from Alba. So we'll start there, and after that, I think there's a good 4 emails and like at least like 3-4 comments and one thing from Facebook as well to talk about. So, well, yeah, actually, as I always like to do, a little disclaimer here: nothing is medical advice to anyone, nothing specific to anyone here, just general thoughts and comments and advice, general advice that hopefully will be helpful to anyone that is tuning in. That said, let's read this email from one day ago. Hi, Daniel. My name is Alba, and I've been dealing with insomnia for about 2 years now. Recently discovered your podcast. I love it. Thank you, Alba. Thanks for the encouragement and support. I think what has helped me the most is your suggestion to not let insomnia take over your life. That's exactly what I had been doing for the longest time, thinking, obsessing about sleep, and my inability to sleep. Either way, the last couple of nights, I have made it my mission not to dwell on it and just let it be. If I sleep, great, and if I don't let myself, if I don't tell myself I will be okay and that I will be able to function just as well. I've had 2 nights of good sleep. That's amazing. That's awesome. And we'll get back to that. The night before, I slept a straight 6 hours, which is great. And last night I slept about 5 hours, which is also great. I do have a question. I've noticed that these last 2 days that I feel groggy throughout the day, similar to like when you take a sleeping pill. Since I'm not taking any pills, I wonder what could be the cause of that. If you could shed some light on that and maybe provide some tips on what to do about it. I'm a mom of 3 and a full-time student and need to be as sharp as possible. And Alba says, thanks. Sorry for the long email. That was not a long email. With insomnia, oftentimes you get really long emails, which I love all emails, by the way, but this is not very long. But that said, couple of things. First of all, as you may have heard me say, I always try to find positive things. And the fact that you slept 2 nights pretty good is really good. That's amazing. That's super nice to hear. And I think it's important to kind of play up that, to be like, yeah, I can sleep. This is helpful. What I'm doing is working. And at the same time, like, you should fully expect using the techniques I always talk about here. You should fully expect to sleep great, but not expect anything particular from tonight, you know? But yeah, play up the positive. That becomes stepping stones, and so that is really good. And now, I'm kind of tempted to go into a comment here, and I think let's do it actually. Let's go to this comment, which just dovetails perfectly to this question about, like, I'm sleeping better, but I'm feeling kind of almost drugged. So this comment is on episode 259, which also really is on the same topic here. In this episode, I talked about how they're kind of like 3 steps in terms of like getting past insomnia. The first one is decreasing anxiety. The second one is starting to sleep better, and the last one is feeling less fatigued. And I talk about that in episode 259. So really, for anyone interested in learning more about this, tune into that. But that said, let's read this comment from Ellen. She said, funny you posted this because I was thinking how ironic it was that I'm now feeling more fatigued sleeping much better than I was getting 0 to 2 hours a night. And I realized that the hyperarousal was just masking the fatigue. I'm gonna stop there, but there's a really good comment. You can read all of it, comment 259. So going back to your question here, Alba, I think that is what happens. When insomnia is really active, your brain is kind of in this turbo mode, and it's like, so you're aware of everything that's going on. Like it's like you know, you're in this fight or flight type mode, and that kind of masks fatigue. You don't feel how tired you really are. What happens then is, like, as your hyperarousal, you know, you learn, for example, that insomnia is not harmful to your health. Most people sleep about 6 hours, and your hyperarousal kind of starts coming down, and you start sleeping better. Those are kind of the two first steps. But the fatigue may actually become stronger because your hyperarousal is decreasing. You feel the full force of that fatigue. So nothing unexpected, actually very, very common. And as you continue sleeping better, as your hyperarousal goes away, but you're sleeping better so that you're feeling less fatigued, well, what I'm trying to say is like just kind of keep going, and that the fatigue is the last thing to go, but it will go. So that was one really important thing. Some tips on what to do about it. For those of you that have given up coffee, I always say that you should never give insomnia anything. Particularly that cup in the morning. Enjoy it. That can help. And being a mom of 3, full-time student, this is a hard one. But I usually say that when you feel really fatigued, it may not seem like a good idea to like go and take a walk or exercise, something like that. But I think that is one of the best things to do. Like really counterintuitively, like physical activity can really help counter fatigue. But most of all, actually just like keep going, do all the things I talk about here, like feel reassured, feel less worried about sleep, using the education on this channel, and spend less time in bed until you have more sleep confidence. Then you can spend more time in bed and just like keep going with all of this. So Alba, well done. It's always important to point out to anyone that's getting better that you did this, nothing external. You did this, and that builds sleep confidence. So any follow-up questions, please let me know. And that said, let us move to, let us actually start more chronologically here, going back a few steps to a question. I think this was a very brief question here from Rommel. And Rommel just actually said, can you help me combat my insomnia? Thanks. That was 5 days ago. And then I said, maybe tell me a little bit more. And then we got this message. Hi, I was suffering from insomnia for about a year. It started when I felt lonely and alone that time. Can you please help me to combat this kind of sleep disorder? Thanks. Just a few things here, really. Oftentimes I get emails that say like, I'm battling insomnia, or I need to conquer this thing, or I need to combat it. I think a really good first step is to try to rethink that meaning. I've shared this analogy before, but let me kind of bring it back to life again, if you will. A patient in clinic told me that he slept like a fireman, and it was a little bit different context. But the way I thought about that was like, imagine yourself as a fireman, right? And this alarm goes off, and you get to the scene, and there's a tiny fire there, and then you aim the water hose at it, and as soon as you spray it with water, the fire goes bigger. You spray more water, it gets even bigger. That's kind of insomnia. Like the more you combat it, the more you fight it, the more you try to like squash it or whatnot, the stronger it becomes because you're giving it attention. And so a good first step is to like, try to step away from the combat, step away from the struggle, meaning do less things, spend less time trying to figure out why you have insomnia. Don't try like these like gadgets or tricks or hacks or anything like that. And actually apart from that, just everything I talk about on this channel is to help people sleep better. So the classical things: spend less time in bed, try to not think about distract yourself from sleep, stay active during the day, all that stuff. But really just like peruse the channel, and I think you'll find a lot that's helpful there. Let me know if you have any follow-up questions. And by the way, I forgot to say this, anyone that's tuning in here, if you have any questions at any time, please let me know. But specifically, if like 2 months from today or 6 months or a year from today, you're like sleeping better, please share that so that can bring hope to others. Okay, now we have an email from Stevo, who's commented a couple of times on the channel as well. So let's read this. So basically, I've tried anything from sleeping techniques to sleep habits to sleep restriction to everything, but somehow this month I just keep sleeping less and less. problem is it's even more severe when I don't eat. So first, my neurology doctor told me I was the only case he ever heard of with these kind of symptoms, and he knows nothing that can be done. I've tried benzos, sedatives, every kind of relaxant, and I can see now it was never psychological. It was never psychological. I was working in a complex IT field. I've just had a startup for app development, and because of this, I had to sell my company. My mental state is coming to the wire. I have memory problems, reasoning abilities, creativity, working memory, so on. I can't focus physically. I'm tired. Haven't been exercising for a month because of this. I just can't. It's physically impossible. I read a couple of books like Why We Sleep, Say Goodnight, and the Effortless Sleep Method. I applied any kind of rules and every kind of advice. Nothing is helping. Today I only slept like 1 to 5 hours, and I can recognize any clue and hint about sleepiness. I've tried sleep restriction. I know how to differentiate when I'm sleeping. And yes, I've had paradoxical sleep. I've had sleep paralysis. I have problems staying asleep and falling asleep. In a way, actually, my circadian rhythm is screwed up. Also, I go to bed at 3 p.m. I have hypnic jerks. I'll get into context of sleep paralysis. If I'm taking melatonin 1 milligram, I've tried valerian root, magnesium, potassium. I don't know. Before this month, I have actually lost my dog. I'm jobless now. My parents also wants to kick me out because of these problems. They think it's all mental, and I'm making it up. I have no energy, no more. I can't argue with them. I'm mentally down. I've dropped like 40% in performance, slower speed. I've decreased a lot. I've tried CBTI, resorting to Ambien or any medication that will help. I've also thought about sporadic insomnia, but I'm still pushing through it. I hope this hyperarousal, I don't know what I'm going to do. I'm averaging about 1 to 2 hours this week. I've had no energy for a couple of days. I've become so much more tired. I can't communicate with people. They're too fast. They're too mentally advantageous. The only supporter is my brother, who's fading off also normally before 1 month. If I had at least 6 or 5 hours next day instantly, I would have slept 12 hours the next couple of days to replenish that sleep. Do you think that we need to replenish lost sleep? Also, I've seen a dozen of research studies that show how insomnia improves mortality, and here's a link. I also discussed with a couple of neuroscientists. They told me the same. They told me sleep is crucial because it helps the brain stems develop to proper functioning. Till 25, I'm 22 years old. I guess it's not going to end up tragically because I'm going in that direction. Also about the part that was weird, my doctor didn't have a clue what it is related to. Let's call it sleep paralysis. So the main problem is not that I call because of the internet. I'm skimming a little bit. I'm almost here towards the end of this email. My survival instinct kicks in, which is not controllable. I'm undergoing an MRI for suspected. Okay, back to insomnia. I've never slept 4+ hours interrupted, and in case I've never slept 2+. I've never slept 2+ years. So first off, in this late days, the previous routines doesn't work anymore, and that's kind of my sleep restriction method. Like if I can't sleep more than 30 minutes or less, I get up and take some honey to do stuff, and that really is what I'm doing for 2+ years effectively. Nowadays, it's not working. It's counterproductive. Is it possible? Okay, here's the question. Is this possible to resolve, or is my life screwed? So a lot to process here, Stevo, of course. But I want to say, I think a couple of things that come to mind. Reading this email, gives you the sense of somebody that is very preoccupied with sleep, meaning this is somebody who is talking to neuroscientists, reading papers, talking to a doctor, trying various kind of like potassium, valerian root, magnesium, somebody who, there's also a lot of things going on, like lost a job, lost a work, and like a lot of stressors. But going back to kind of the preoccupation, I think going back to kind of like the basics, like the basics of like getting better sleep. And I made I can't remember which number it was, but there's that episode where I used a kind of a babushka doll and went through layers. So that I feel like one of the first layers towards like developing a foundation for sleeping better is to start finding that there's nothing inherently wrong with you. Now, as I said in kind of my early disclaimer, like if everyone that has a concern about their health, you should see your doctor. That's super important. But if there's no, let's say there's no, your doctor says there's nothing, we don't find anything wrong with you and you have trouble sleeping, then typically the first best thing to do is to start seeing that there's nothing innately wrong with you. Insomnia is a product of preoccupation and stress and anxiety. But before you can even start working with your insomnia, if you are looking for a faulty brain switch or some problem in the brain or some neurotransmitter imbalance, if you're looking for that, if you're looking in that direction, then you're not quite at a place where we can start working. So that's kind of step one. Step two is often to see that, well, what the problems I have is similar to other problems I have. Another really important step is to, again, kind of like I said to Rommel, take that step away, meaning stop looking for articles, stop Googling, stop going to online forums, stop, because that just fuels the insomnia. The more time you think about your sleep, the more preoccupied you get, the more stressed you get. And then when it comes to bedtime, your mind is just like completely turbo mode, just thinking about all the things you read and how is this going to affect my sleep, and what if I don't sleep, and what if this. So like taking a step away from that is super important. And then also like, stop trying to do things to produce sleep. And then I know you mentioned like sleep restriction, a couple of books you've read, and oftentimes I find that when people tell me like I did CBT and it didn't work for me, that they did it for maybe a couple of days or a week, but not necessarily like in a structured fashion, and it can take weeks. Like Ellen, who I just read a comment from, it took her about 5 weeks of spending less time in bed and really working with Martin Reed, I believe, and communicating with me as well, to start feeling better, start sleeping better. So Stevo, hope this was helpful. And I think there was a comment, we'll get to that later actually. There was another comment from Stevo about the hypnic jerks, I believe. So we talked about those, and here is an email that I'm actually super, super excited about. I can't remember the details of it, but when I read it, it's like, I can't wait to talk about this. This is an email from Joe, J.O., who's also commented a number of times here on the channel. And the title is Sleep Maintenance Issue Persisting, but More Sleepiness. Let's read this. Hi, Daniel. Thanks for your reply and addressing my questions in the video. I didn't even remember that, Joe, but thank you. Thank you and everybody else for sending me questions. So helpful. You have no idea how helpful your channel is. That just means the world hearing that. Thank you, Joe. I've done a CBT course through the NHS here in London and read books, but I still couldn't shake the belief that CBT wouldn't work for me. Firstly, waking up after 2 to 3 hours every single night made me doubt how a shorter sleep window would change that. Secondly, having chronic fatigue syndrome means it is much harder for me. And now when I see the CFS, I remember that. I remember that reply. Having the CFS means it is much harder for me than most. Pain and fatigue increase with my extra stress on the body. However, your channel and Martin Reed's really increased my understanding and persuaded me to try again and persevere through the pain. Learning that others had the same beliefs as me was eye-opening. My insomnia is unique. I never get sleepy. Is my circadian rhythm 48 hours? And the old FFI crossed my mind too at the darkest time. So I have loads of positives to report. That's amazing. And first of all, let's take a quick break there, but check this out. Joe learned that his insomnia was not unique, and that never feeling sleepy and wondering if his circadian rhythm was like 48 hours was something other people had. And that's key, like really important to realize, like, okay, other people feel exactly this. Other people have done better with CBTI. I can do that too. Super important. And now let's read on. I've been persevering with a very short sleep window of 5 hours. For those of you who are new here, that means Joe's basically just spending 5 hours in bed. I set my wake up time to 7 a.m. as that's when my kids come and jump on me and give me cuddles. So I have no choice but to wake up. I guess you don't need an alarm then, right? I've therefore been going to bed at 2 a.m. I have been getting sleepier and sleepier as the days have passed, which I guess is a huge step forward. Yes, I can't get out and be active due to the CFS, and a lot of time in the day is spent resting on the sofa. It's hard not to nap. I do manage to resist though. Good. But even feeling like I can nap is a big improvement. I get to sleep very easily when I go to bed, which was never really an issue. I'm still waking every night, but I have chosen not to do a sleep diary whilst doing the sleep restriction, which stops me from looking at the clock and thinking about how long I've slept. You know, I think a lot about that. Like, I think a lot about this, the sleep window, the sleep diary thing, that I feel like for most people it's good to keep track, but also then you are creating kind of more attention towards sleep. So, I think it's very, very reasonable to do exactly what you're doing. I think there's a lot of benefit to it. Anyway, little comment there. I have even got back to sleep once or twice, which is also amazing. I also don't feel alert enough to get out of bed when I've woken up, and pain and fatigue means stimulus control would be very difficult. My anxiety around sleep has decreased somewhat too. My main question is, given that I'm finding it very hard to stay awake, especially in the evenings, would it be time to increase the sleep window slightly, even though I'm still not sleeping solidly and still having difficulty maintaining sleep? Or would it be best to stick with the strict 5 hours until sleep maintenance is no longer an issue? I guess I also need to listen to my body, as you suggested, and widen the sleep window if it becomes physically too uncomfortable. But for now, I'm coping with the 5 hours. Your thoughts on sleep windows with the sleep maintenance insomnia is persisting at the same time as a big increase in daytime eating sleepiness would be most welcome. This is really, 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 really good question, and can't wait to answer it. But first, I want to say that as I always trying to bring up the positive things here, well done, super, super well done, and I think that's so important to point out, because again, the fact that you did this, it wasn't like any external factor that produced these results. You did it, and that should give you like sleep confidence, and like you have the power, and like that's again, awesome job. That's the first thing. Now, I felt there was one more thing I wanted to comment on before we get to the question. But I don't think so, actually. Let's see. So the question here is, Joe is spending just 5 hours in bed, still not sleeping solidly through those 5 hours, but is wondering, but still like being increasingly sleepy. So should he kind of like just stick with the 5 hours until he sleeps solidly through those 5 hours and then spend more time in bed, or should he already now spend more time like extended sleep window? Here are my thoughts on this. Firstly, I want to say that both are reasonable options. I think I believe, initially, if you'd asked me like 8 months ago, I might have said like maybe just stick with it. But I changed my thinking here, meaning I no longer believe that it's really important to have a super tight sleep window. And I believe that because I think even more important than spending less time in bed is kind of like the educational component of CBTI, and the kind of decreasing efforts, trying less. I think that's even more important than a short sleep window. So so if somebody asked me, kind of my general advice to somebody in your situation, Joe, I think it is better to start like spending a little more time in bed. What was I going to say here? And there are more than one way to do that. Meaning you could either say, okay, I'm going to go to bed not before 1:30 or 1 a.m. Or, and I think this is a very kind of interesting way to move forward as well, is to use Michael Schwartz ditch the clock technique, which would be already, let's say, midnight. You could say, I'm just not going to check the time anymore, which you're already doing, but you could do that already, say midnight, and then just have that built-in alarm at 7 a.m. with your kids coming down. And then from midnight on, you just like do things that does not involve like you knowing what time it is. And then you just go by feelings. Like if you feel sleepy, you go to bed. If you don't feel sleepy, you stay out. And that's a good way too of transitioning to a wider window. So I felt that, was there one more thing I want to add? No, I think that's it. I hope this helped, Joe. And first of all, thanks for sharing all the progress here. That's super helpful. That brings hope to others. And stay in touch. Stay in touch, Joe. Okay, cool. So that was Joe. I think we covered all the emails here. And now let's move to the comments. And we have here Stevo that I just, we talked about his email. And there's a comment as well here. Hi again. My body's rejecting the sleep, moving suddenly other parts of the body. I have a hypnic jerk, sleep paralysis. The only thing related to fatal insomnia, so the symptoms when the area stops working properly, directs the activity to other parts. So I don't have a scheduled appointment for sleep study. This is a comment on episode 259. I just want to comment on these like sleep paralysis and hypnic jerks. And always, you should check with your doctor, of course. That's the most important thing. But typically, when it comes to these kind of the jerks, the twitches, even the sleep paralysis is often related to hyperarousal. And as one kind of does kind of what Joe did, like realizes that the things that are going on with me seem similar to other people. I'm not unique. I have insomnia just like other people have. Like when the hyperarousal decreases, those hypnic jerks and stuff tend to go away, and they're just like insomnia. The more attention they get, kind of the stronger they become. So I hope that comment helps, Stevo. And then before we look at Facebook, just a super recent comment here from, I think it just 1 hour ago now. And this is a comment on Insomnia site number 68. And Ari writes the following. Hello, Daniel. I need some advice, please. I'm planning to get off from Klonopin, 0.25 milligrams, early December. The Klonopin was started from 2 milligrams, and now I have successfully tapered down to 0.25 milligrams. The Klonopin was prescribed for insomnia, difficulty to fall asleep, and night anxiety, racing mind. I take it every day at night time, only 1 hour before bed. But a few months ago, I tried not to take it for one night, but could not fall asleep. I was laying in bed with eyes closed, but still conscious. After 7 months of using Klonopin, I feel much better now because it helps to get enough sleep. So far, I've not got any bad withdrawal symptoms aside from not being able to fall asleep. And I still don't know why, if I don't take Klonopin, I couldn't fall asleep at all, although I have done sleep hygiene and guided meditation. So I'm considering to try wake therapy. Okay, since the Klonopin is prescribed for insomnia, how do I apply this to wake therapy? Should I just stop taking Klonopin completely and start the wake therapy, or how? If you have any other suggestions, please help. I need guidance, please, Daniel. Please give me some advice. All right, and I'm going to reply to this in the context of, again, not specific to you, Eric, but anyone that's in this situation with really any medication, done a huge taper, but in just like, it's just that last step, going from a little bit to nothing. I read actually just something that randomly comes to mind here, which I think still applies there, is I think it was Bedtime Stories for Insomniacs by Sasha Stevens, where she writes of, how some people just have, like, let's say they're Ambien, and they're kind of like, they're no longer taking the whole thing. In fact, they just nibble a little bit, and then they sleep great, right? What that illustrates is that the amount, if you just nibble your Ambien a little bit and you then sleep good, it's not like the amount of active ingredient in your body is minimal. It's not making you sleep. But if they don't even nibble, they don't sleep. So what is going on? Well, what happens is, of course, it's that the belief, it's the confidence issue. So If, what happens is when someone is not taking their sleep medications and can't sleep, then, let's say somebody was on a high dose of something real sedating and then they can't sleep. Well, to a part, yes, it is because, that whatever sedating substance is no longer in your system, it's not in your brain. That there's a part of, part of the rebound insomnia is that, but that does not explain why somebody who stops taking their medication is up all night. By the way, I'm going in the different directions here, but I hope it's all helpful here. CPAP. Somebody's using a CPAP machine, oftentimes describe the same thing, that if they don't have their CPAP machine, they're literally up the entire night. It's not that like air, it's not like they're dependent on air for the brain to produce sleep, but it's the same thing. It's like, if I don't have a CPAP machine, what's going to happen? That's the big thing. The what if is what kills the sleep. The what if is what kills the sleep. So what typically happens is somebody decides, I'm not going to take my medication. Well, right off the bat, you're going to be self-monitoring. So right off the bat, when you decide, I'm not going to take my sleep medications, like the kind of like you're almost saying, I'm not going to take my sleep medications, and I'm going to see what happens. Already there, you're self-monitoring. So you're not taking it, and then you're wondering, okay, let's see what happens. It's 11. I haven't fallen asleep. Do I feel sleepy? No, I don't. Oh wait, I did feel sleepy. Maybe I'm going to sleep, but maybe not. What if I take it? Maybe I should take it. No, I shouldn't. I've decided not to. What if I take half of it? Or what if I don't sleep at all? Then what? Am I going to lose my ability to sleep? Maybe I'll go crazy. What if I take 2 pills tomorrow? That whole thought process, that is what causes that rebound insomnia. The whole trying to all those questions, all that preoccupation, all that hyperarousal, that's what causes that complete lack of sleep when somebody doesn't take their medication. So I think a really, really good thing is for somebody that's on a medication and wants to get off of it, is to start transferring confidence. Start transferring confidence from the pill to yourself. How do you do that? Well, I think a really good way to do that is to, first of all, understand that the only thing that can produce sleep is your natural sleep, your body's ability or your body's need to sleep. That's the only thing that can make a human being sleep, right? And how can you prove that conceptually? Well, let's say somebody took, I haven't come up with a better example in this one, but let's say somebody says, I take my Ambien and then I sleep 8 hours. Well, let's say you took it at, 8 let's say midnight and then 8 a.m. and then whatever it becomes 8 hours after 8 p.m. Like, what if you took it every 8 hours, Would you sleep 24/7? No, you wouldn't, right? You actually would not sleep more than your body needs to sleep, no matter how much Ambien you take. The Ambien cannot produce sleep. Klonopin cannot produce sleep. Ativan cannot produce sleep. Nothing can produce sleep except your own body, which means, and this is where I'm going with this, is that for somebody that's taken Ambien for 25 years, it was always the body that produced the sleep. It was never the Ambien. For somebody that's taking Klonopin, 0.25 milligrams, it is not the Klonopin that's producing sleep, it's your own body. That, I believe, is a really good first step towards transferring confidence from the outside to the inside. It was never the medication that produced sleep. It was always you that produced the sleep. Number one. How do you take the final step towards okay, I'm not going to take it? Well, I think all the stuff I talked about hopefully helps. But then, but other than that, just knowing that you might not sleep very much, right? But if you keep going, if you just say, okay, I'm still, even if I don't sleep well tonight, here's what you could use classic CBT, classic bedtime restriction here, and say, I'm not going to take it tonight, but I'm going to get up at 7 no matter what, and I'm not going to go to bed before midnight, right? And then let's say you're up the whole entire night. Well, guess what? You get out of bed still at 7, and you're active during the day, and then you don't go to bed before midnight. And if you just keep doing that, eventually, your sleep drive will kick in, and you start sleeping again. And so that's one thing. And now wake therapy. So wake therapy is kind of like bedtime restriction on steroids. For those of you who haven't heard about it, it's when you decide to stay up for, let's say, first 24 hours. And so let's say you normally get up at 7 a.m. So you stay up in the entire 24 hours until 7 a.m. the following day, and then you stay up until let's say 2 a.m. So now you've been awake for like, I can't even do the math, but like, I don't know, 38 hours or something like that, right? And then you go to bed at 4 a.m. and then you sleep until, let's say, 8 a.m. And then the next night you go to like 3:30 and then 5, and that's wake therapy. It's kind of like really extreme. But if somebody was like on a very low dose of a sleep medication and then said, I want to try wake therapy to get off of this, sounds to me as if it would be like you would just stop taking it, and then like let's say you took it at your normal time at like 10 p.m. and then you slept that night, and then you woke up at 7 a.m. and then you start wake therapy from 7 a.m. and then you're up until 7 a.m. the following day, and then up until like, you know, whatever, 2 a.m. or something the following night, and then start like that. I think that would be the way to go. I feel like wake therapy, I never heard of anybody that's applied it successfully. I feel a problem with therapy is actually the expectation that I've heard about people that have tried it and have not done well, because when you've been up, you know, 38 hours, you expect to sleep big time, right? And that expectation can just sabotage the whole thing. And so it's tricky, but I think that's the way to maybe try it if you really want to. So Ari, hope this was helpful. And by the way, coming down from 2 milligrams to 0.5 milligrams, that's huge. That's huge. Well done. Well done. Okay, cool. So we have I think maybe it's just one more thing here. That was that. And I'm going to, where is it? Oh, there. Okay. So this is Jay, who have contributed a lot to the channel. Basically, long story short here, was super afraid that he had like one of these fatal insomnias that are so rare, and have had like, I guess went for really months, estimating sleeping like almost 0 and sleeping a little bit more lately, but has a new question here. Where is it? I think, thanks, Daniel. Where is it? Reason I bring it up. Let's just read this whole thing. Thanks, I can't wait to hear. I'm still really worried. I plan on going back to the ER soon. I noticed cuts and stuff like that are taking longer to heal, which is due to lack of sleep. But thank you. The reason I bring up REM sleep is because, yes, it does take me 2 to 3 hours most nights to fall asleep, and on good days I get 4 to 4.5 hours. I also want to let you know that there is a way to know if you have failed insomnia. It's called a PET scan, but they don't want to give me that. And then another one, I think you forgot to talk about REM sleep. I'm really worried it takes me like 2 to 3 hours to fall asleep, and I'm 90% of the time having vivid dreams. I'm wondering if it's possible to go straight to REM sleep and just get REM sleep, no form of deep sleep. And that, I think, was the question. Okay. So, first of all, like, you know, I think, Jay, I don't think you ever shared really like what your sleep times are. But if somebody says that, you know, it takes me 2 to 3 hours to fall asleep, I think for most people, the first thing to do is, you know, go to bed like 2 to 3 hours later, and definitely not spend 2 to 3 hours like trying to sleep. That's like kind of number one here. And you know, If somebody is not doing that, then the first step would be to apply like kind of the basic techniques, which is like spending less time in bed, and maybe spending, if somebody estimates sleeping like 4 hours per night, then spending maybe like 6 hours in bed or something is for most people a good place to start, and keeping the wake up time fixed, like getting up at the same time every day is very good. Now, the question about the REM sleep here. Firstly, I got this quote from somebody that I thought was really good, like, who said, worrying about like the stages of sleep, how much you get of each, is kind of like worrying about the composition of like the gases in air, meaning we don't know what it is, and it doesn't actually affect us in any known way. And I really feel that's true, meaning people often are interested in doing sleep studies because they want to know how much deep sleep and REM sleep they have, but it doesn't really change anything. If somebody has like no deep sleep, well, then there's nothing to do about that, and it doesn't necessarily signal anything in particular. If somebody has a lot of REM sleep, it doesn't really change anything. So that's one thing that's important, I think. And then, can you go directly into REM sleep? That's unusual. It can happen, but it's unusual. But more importantly here is that dreaming happens actually in all sleep stages. You have more recall, you remember more from REM sleep, but you dream in every sleep stage. And a lot of people with trouble sleeping have these like extremely vivid nights, like remember every little detail of dreams and like in and out of dreams, and that's typically because of superficial sleep, that you have the hyperarousal, and then you also may spend too much time in bed, and then you never get into deep sleep because of that, because you just kind of fall asleep, your hyperarousal wakes you up, you fall asleep, you're up again, and then you remember every single little dream and even thoughts, so it feels like you're in this REM sleep, but it's actually more just superficial sleep. So hope that's helpful to you, Jay, and stay in touch and let us know how things go. And oh, sorry, I hit the wrong button. I just want to make sure that I don't miss any comments from the YouTube channel, which I have done before. Oh yeah. Important. I forgot this one, and I guess this is going to be the last one. So Gabriella, who I, in my latest of these like podcasts episodes, I call them, I replied to her, and she said the following 2 days ago. Awesome, thank you. I do have a question. My CBT coach told me to incorporate calm magnesium powder before bed, so I've been doing that. When I still have issues falling asleep, I take 1 milligram melatonin to help me nod off. It seems to work most of the time. Is this a bad habit, as it can be considered a sleep effort, or no, because it's a more natural remedy? Thanks in advance. Really good question. And I want to say the following. If I see somebody in clinic or somebody talk to and or whatever, and they tell me like, I take melatonin every night and I sleep good, then I don't really feel any need to tell that person to stop or to change anything. They're sleeping good. That's great. I might tell them this, that, just keep in mind that the only thing that can make you sleep is your own body. You can still take the melatonin or sleepy time tea or some valerian root or something like that. But the problem happens when you start believing that the melatonin makes you sleep. If you start believing that the magnesium makes you sleep, when you believe that the sleepy time tea makes you sleep, that's when the problem happens, because what happens then is that you've transferred confidence to an external factor. Like, you don't believe that you produce the sleep, you believe that that produces the sleep. And that can, you can go for years really with having that kind of like not quite good sleep confidence. You feel like you need that thing to make you sleep. So it could be fine, but what I'm always worried about is that when something happens, when something changes in your life, there's that extra stress, or like there's that something happens that throws you off, throws your sleep off, and now you're not sleeping well, because then what happens is you start thinking about the external thing. You're like, I need to go up on my melatonin, or I need to take some more magnesium powder, and then you very well can go into this tailspin of trying different things. They don't work. You become more preoccupied. You have to find something. You do this and that. So that is my concern when it comes to natural things or medications. It's really the same thing. It's all about the belief. So as long as you know that whatever you take, whatever you do, your body's producing the sleep. You maintain the sleep confidence. It is you take ownership of your sleep. Perfect. And so again, as long as you know that you produce all the sleep yourself, no worries. But if you were like, so in a way, and this is interesting, the more like the somebody that has a lot of trouble sleeping should really not do anything because they have very little sleep confidence. Somebody who's sleeping good or pretty good, that's fine if they experiment, right? Because they have sleep confidence. So I just a comment on that. And actually, let's finish off here by two things. Number one, Joe. When I read that email from Joe that we read it together in a little while ago. Yeah, I know that in the London area there's a lot. Like, I feel like in the UK, NHS is really trying to promote CBTI, which is amazing. But these programs that are available, I believe, One is Sleepio. There may be other ones. They're automatic. They're like you're completely self-guided. And one thing that Martin Reed, Insomnia coach Martin Reed, told me that I never forget is like, you cannot automate this process. It's almost impossible to get past your insomnia by yourself. You almost always need another human to help you and support you and guide you. So I think it is amazing that the NHS is doing this, but I think there needs to be a human involved, So that's a little comment on that. And then what else? What comment on? Gabriella. I believe in coaching. I'm so optimistic about coaching for many reasons. But basically, because traditional medicine is kind of like somebody tells you the problem, and you as a doctor have to tell them what to do. Take this pill or do this thing, right? And a lot of the problems that we're facing in kind of modern day society, insomnia, if it's anxiety, even like pain, and a lot of things are more related to kind of our internal emotional landscape. And oftentimes the solution really becomes, going to the inside, exploring our feelings and beliefs and behaviors and attitudes and habits, right? And what a coach does is that a coach, guides you and shows you how you can work yourself to solve your own problems. Like a coach is somebody who who empowers you, who grows your own ability to solve your problems, who helps you grow in a way, right? And so I'm super, super hopeful that life coaching, sleep coaching, anxiety coaching, empowerment coaching, all that stuff will just grow and really help our society. I really think it's we need a massive amount of that. Now, that said, if a sleep coach, if a CBT coach tells you to use a magnesium powder, that's so interesting because the whole basis of CBT is education and behavior change. So why would you do that? That's kind of where part of my mind goes. And the other part is it's really cool that there's CBT coaches out there. So I'm really curious if you want to share where you found your coach. That would be amazing. But that said, I believe we covered everything. I hope this is helpful to everyone. Thanks everyone for your emails, and it really means the world to me that I get this opportunity to talk about sleep with you. So yeah, without further ado, please leave comments. Please email me, daniel@insomniainsight.co, and I shall be back tomorrow. Until then, stay out of trouble.